Well, good afternoon. As people continue to enter and maybe enter a little bit late, I welcome everyone. Da Jia Hao. I'm Jim Mockford, Board President of the Northwest China Council, and I want to thank you for attending today's Zoom talk, which is being recorded and will be posted on our YouTube channel. This is a webinar format, so you will be muted on entry, and you may enter questions at any time by clicking the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen and opening a dialog box. We will respond to those questions at the end of the presentation. The Northwest China Council is a nonprofit, non-political organization founded in 1980 with a grant from the Asia Society to promote a better understanding of China, Chinese culture, business history, and contemporary affairs in the Pacific Northwest. Please join us for programs by visiting our website at northwestchina.org. It's a bit unusual for us to offer a program on Sunday, but because of the theater schedule, we thought this was the best way to get the speakers to share their stories with us, as well as allow our members to attend the show, which you can still do by visiting the Oregon Children's Theater website and schedule your attendance at the performances of Where the Mountain Meets the Moon. I was delighted to attend the opening show, and you still have time to get tickets to see the show all this week. I would like to thank John Wong, our executive director and webmaster, for producing today's event. And also, I will now introduce our moderator for the Cultural Threads panel, Dmae Roberts. Dmae is a two-time Peabody Award-winning writer and independent media and theater artist who has written and produced numerous documentaries for National Public Radio and Public Radio International. As executive producer of media rights, she created Crossing East, the first AAPI history series on public radio. She co-founded and managed Theater Diaspora as a project for 5 years and created a 2-year book project focusing on writings of our youth about mental health during the pandemic called Speaking Our Truths, the ISM Youth File, which I actually attended that one online. It was very interesting. For her theater work, she has won 2 Grammy Awards and the Oregon Book Award. Her plays have been produced at the IFCC, Artists Repertory Theater, Portland Repertory Theater, Northwest Asian American Theater in Seattle, and East West Players in Los Angeles. Her recent short films have won over a dozen film festivals worldwide, and she returned to us here in Oregon and to the Oregon Children's Theater as director for Where the Mountain Meets the Moon by Min Kong, an all AAPI local cast, and actually the first of this type in Portland. So it's been great to see the show and welcome all the professional creative persons that have been involved in it. And we'll hear more about that shortly. She previously directed the Journal of Ben Uchida in March 2020 at Oregon Children's Theater. And with that, I'd like to welcome Dmae with many thanks, and she will introduce the panel, the Creative Artist panel. Thank you, Dmae.
Thank you, Jim. And it's great to be here with Northwest China Council for your China Chat series. And on a personal level, I want to thank Oregon Children's Theater for the opportunity to direct Min Khan's musical. And it's based on the much loved book by Grace Lin. And she's actually going to be in Portland next Saturday to see the show. We actually only have 2 more shows left on Saturday and Sunday, 2 p.m. next weekend. And the show closes on May 28th. And Northwest China Council members get 20% off, yay. And Grace Lin will be there on March 27th at 2 p.m. And afterwards, she's going to be doing a signing. So if you're a fan of Where the Mountain Meets the Moon, here is a chance to meet the director. I mean, I'm the director, the author, but also, see a wonderful show. I can't tell you how lucky I feel with such talented musical theater performers and dancers, and it's just such a beautiful show, and the best creative team ever. I mean, just lucky all the way around. So I also want to thank everybody watching us for joining us on I'm calling it the Cultural Threads panel. My organization, Media Rights, received support from the Oregon Humanities for this panel. So we're sort of doing both Where the Mountain Meets the Moon, but also the cultural threads of Chinese art and culture that we have woven into the show. So I want to introduce our panel. First up is Minh Tran. He's like the first person I thought of, that I said, oh, I'd love to do this with Minh. We've collaborated like 5 times. So I think this is the 5th time. Minh is the founding artistic director of Minh Tran and Company, his own dance company, a contemporary dance company based in Portland. As a Vietnamese American and former refugee, he's created a really distinguished career as a choreographer and a dance educator. And he's known for the synthesis of both Eastern and Western aesthetics. And he received his BA from PSU and a master's in fine art from the University of Washington. And he is now a retired associate professor emeritus in dance at Reed College. And he is the choreographer for Where the Mountain Meets the Moon. Say hi, Minh.
Afternoon, everyone.
So now another person that I thought of, who I worked with before, is Willow Zheng, and you all know her here at Northwest China Council. She is, the educator of Mandarin language extraordinaire, and also a brilliant visual artist. Willow Zheng, a professional artist specializing in Chinese traditional paintings, and she did illustrations for my short film Dmae that Media Rights produced and I directed back in 2014. Yes, and she is the painting language instructor for Northwest China Council and the Portland Culture and Art Center and Jiaoming Culture and Art School. And she holds a BFA in figure painting and an MFA in Chinese painting from Xi'an. Am I pronouncing that right? I hope so. An Academy of Fine Arts in China. And gallery showings, Portland Art Museum, Rental and Sales Gallery, Cook Gallery, Port Orford, Oregon, solo painting exhibition. She's won awards from Regional Arts and Culture Council, the City of Portland Public Art Commission, the Classical Chinese Garden, and also was the Best of Show for 4th Annual Gresham Juried Art Exhibit, Best of Show 19th Annual Beaverton Art Showcase, and the Best of Show 18th Annual Beaverton Art Showcase. And she worked for us as I guess we called you a visual art director and a cultural consultant for Where the Mountain Meets the Moon, because Willow did some really wonderful brush paintings, which I'll show for you later. Say hey, ni hao, Willow.
Hey, 你好，你们好。
So first I want to show you some images. Media Rights helped to build collaborations with several organizations, including Northwest China Council, the Lansu Garden in Portland, Chinatown. So I'm sharing screen now. You'll see in the background, if you've been to Lansu Garden, we did our photo shoot in Lansu Garden, and we were actually inspired. A lot of the images that we use for the scenic design by John Kashiwabara were based on both Chinatown, the Chinatown Gate, as well as Lansu Garden. So you'll see here that there is an old man of the moon in the show. And so we based that portal that he stands in front of on the same one that we just showed you a picture of at Lansu Garden. And here's another thing, this is our dragon for the show, played by Samson Siaroth, and that's at the Lansu Garden. But also here on stage, we have a direct correlation with the Chinatown Gate in downtown and in Old Town, and the lion you'll see, recognize, and here you go, there's the gate. So we really wanted to make a direct connection with the Chinese community here in Portland and the history. Now, as I said, I wanted to bring Willow Zheng into this. And this is an art show that she had for Dmae the film. And what she did for Dmae the film was these beautiful Chinese brush paintings. And I actually had Willow, I don't know if you remember, you were in my office almost every Sunday for a month painting for me. And she showed me how it was done, especially the water technique. So I wanted to have her come in and do some of you'll see that we have 2 projector screens there. And we wanted to have her paintings there. Those are her paintings projected on there. Let's see. So Willow, I'm going to just go through this. This is the painting part of it. Do you want to describe how your, what the technique is for this?
The Chinese brush painting got 2 different styles. The one is like a very quick and with the ink splash, those kind of style, the black and a little kind of brown or blue. This one is one of the 2 of this Chinese technique, and this is called the Gongdi Zhongcai. So this one, you draw the fine line and use the ink to get all these dimensions, and then you apply the colors for many, many layers. It takes time. So then you can paint very good details, and will not go bad. Will not destroy it when I paint it. But the quick the ink brush painting, that could paint like in 10 minutes or 20 minutes, you can do one. But the artists need to spend a long time to practice. But this one also needs a long time to practice, but it takes a long time to paint more details. I like this one. This is my training.
I think it's such a beautiful technique, because what I saw when you did it, when I watched you put the water on, because you could easily destroy the painting, couldn't you? By not knowing how to brush the water on.
The other kind, yeah. This one, you put the water on. If you don't like it, before it's dry, you can wash it off.
Oh, that's good. I didn't realize that. The ones you did for me, you had to, you had to start all over again. So that's good. All right. So I'm going to show, this is, there's an effect that doesn't take very long of stage time, but Willow spent a great amount of time with each of these paintings. So this is the peach tree. We have a section in the show where the peach tree magically grows. So what was, what stage of this was it, Willow?
This is the young tree. What stage you mean?
Yeah, so it's a seedling, right? Or a sapling?
Sapling, about 1 year, I don't know. I grew a peach trees. Yeah, this is it.
And this is the peach blossoms, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and here's the full-grown tree. All right, so what did we do with this? This is what happens on stage.
That's a magic.
But it's more magic when you see it on I don't know how tall it is, like a 20, 25 feet tall, projection screen. So it looks small here, but it's really huge on stage. It really is. And it was so magical. And so how long do you think it took you to do each one of those? Because I know it took a long time.
Well, this takes several days because of each leaf, each peach. I even count how many peaches later. I said too many peaches. I'm going to reduce a few, hide some peaches. So no, it still takes a long time. The flowers takes a little less time than this. The young peach tree takes much faster. But I enjoy painting this each peaches. I get familiar with each peaches.
Well, yeah, you became attached to them, huh?
Yeah.
So this is how big it looks on stage.
Nice.
It really is huge. And the Newmark's a huge theater. Willow, would you talk about, I know you've had a lot of visual art training in China, but you also told me that you actually worked on sets, like painting sets for Chinese opera productions in China. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, that was like basically you painted the physical set. Somebody designed, I go there to apply color onto the bigger canvas, and they stretch it on canvas and put on. Then this job Dmae got me is really interesting. I can paint at home a small painting, the real painting, and then I can scan and email them. So I'm not painting the set, but they project it onto the screen. This is much fun thing to do. Enjoy it. It's a lot of details.
It's a little magical, but I also like painting on sets too, you know? So we were lucky enough that we have these projection screens, but most theater companies don't have that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but they do paint on sets. So
That, yeah, that will take a much longer time. You have to go out and then the traveling to the places. So this is much efficient using the time.
what was it like for you to see your visual art on such huge projection screens?
Oh my gosh, this is just amazing. It's a small painting and it blew up, and with all the actors, actresses around it, and then the part of the story. That's really interesting. Thanks to Dmae to give me this chance to do this.
Well, I think it's really beautiful. Do you think that a Chinese brush painting is understood in Portland?
You could. The people will enjoy it, but not many. You don't see many this kind of artwork. Actually, there's two different styles of the brush splash ink painting. There may be some people painted that in Portland, but I don't know who painted this kind of detail, this technique. I could have teach some classes that people can learn. This is a lot of fun.
I hope you do. Yeah, I hope maybe some Northwest China Council, participants will think, oh, we want to learn how to do this too.
Yeah, this is much easier to paint than the splashy ink paintings.
Okay, well, good. Is there anything that you want to say about your art training in China before we talk to Minh about his choreography?
Oh, the art training, altogether, it's 10 years. The first 3 years as like a high school, that was not a high school, that's like a technical school. It's not a college. Then because of the Cultural Revolution, so and the college is not had an enrollment yet. When the college enrolled the students, I went to the 4 years for Chinese painting. So the last 3 years was a master degree. So basically 10 years of training of those kind of technique. I can paint the bird. I don't paint the bird, but paint the flowers, the trees, and the mountains, figures. My major was a figure painting. So that was and I came here. People let me to paint the organization let me to paint the dragons, the phoenix, those things they never paint in China. But well,
they never paint dragons and phoenix.
No, in China they don't care about the dragons and phoenix. So but now this is a story that let me paint those kind of peach tree. That's interesting because myself I grew a peach tree from a seeds. Same like a story. Dmae, you find the right person to do this paint. Dmae, when Dmae found me, I said I can do it, but later, only 1 month, I said, Dmae, in 1 month, I cannot paint so many paintings because.
Oh, you did. You did.
And but Dmae said, just a heck of the 1 month, just do it. I said, okay. So thank you for encouraging. There's a team. I want to say this. The whole team was people. Everybody on the team was really encouraging to help each other, cooperate, and Dmae encouraged me. And the set designer, John, he is really good. He always tell me, give me the ideas because he designed the set, and I have to do the image. So part of the image, John did some of the image. This is the physical set, and other. It's like a Chinese pavilion, so he did that. I did this mostly the mountains and the trees. And Dmae knows about my art. She is a really good director. She tell me, oh, John, you do the architecture and the Willow will do this. This is what I do.
It was a real collaboration. And I really encourage people to see the last 2 shows next weekend at 2 p.m. So I'm going to show the next thing, which is Minh Tran. And so this is a photo from his Minh Tran and Company performance. And so Minh was at most, I wouldn't say all rehearsals, but, many of the rehearsals, because what we found, he was I really wanted him to teach Chinese opera movement, because this is something, an art form that I don't see very much of in America, period, and definitely not in Oregon. And, you know, he choreographed my personal play back in 1991, Dmae, A Daughter Song, and he did such a beautiful job. And I think back on why I love Chinese opera. I was 5 years old and I saw my first performance of any kind, and it was street opera in Taiwan. And it was so magical, and the movement was so beautiful that I've always remembered that. And I always wanted an opportunity to infuse that in any work that I've done. So I've done that a couple times, but not like this, because Minh really worked on a lot of movement that was part of the music or part of, you know, just everyday movement for everybody, character work. And this was the same scene, but in the production. So you'll see how much it grows. And let me show the next thing. Okay, this was in rehearsal. So Minh, would you talk a little bit about what distinguishes Chinese opera from other types of dance?
Yes, it's certainly. Chinese opera, as I think most of us actually familiar with on its production when it's finished. But when it's presented, then everything is, every movement is so, in a way, sort of calling a choreographer for a musical. That is very Western practice. But for this particular production, when Dmae asked me to do it, I know that it is actually, if it's going to be in a Chinese opera tradition, that means every single line, the gesture had to project it in that characterizations of Chinese opera. So from the fingers to the look and how the head was moving, how the foot was flexed or point, and how one moving from one place to the other. And, you know, so it's bigger than life. That's what the Chinese opera characterizations of their Hall of Fame is, making a simple phrase. And mind you, most of the Chinese opera performance is actually delivered in a poem. So we're talking about when we doing the movement, then we're looking at the final products is a poetry in motions in that sense. So you can't just point from one place and point to the other, but then it's going to have to be moving around and about and making it so much into, there's a melodies within the movement itself as well. So the fingers itself is the tools that actors have to use a lot. And also the eyes where they're moving, and that means the whole head have to go. And so it's the moving your body through space that involves walkings. And the walking have its own look as well, from shifting from one foot to the other as the body shifting through space. And so all of that has to be very careful, considered when we're looking at it in a play. So
and it was very much, I'm glad you said that, you know, the whole production ended up being Chinese opera style, as opposed to, you know, here's this, like right now we're looking at an image of the green tiger and dragon fight, you know, that they have. And, you know, that to me was like a dance movement, you know, it's very much martial arts, but it really was infused in the whole play. And as a director, usually you don't have the choreographer that involved, you know, in every single scene, even like a dramatic scene between the mother and father. And it was an interesting practice, you know, to sort of blend the boundaries of what is possible, you know. So it really was a fusion, wasn't it, Minh?
yes, it was. I mean, given this is actually my first experience as a choreographer for a musical theater, but yet in a way, it's not like a typical musical theater in a Western sense.
No,
you know,
but only because of my choices, to tell you the truth, as a director, because most directors wouldn't want that. And it could have gone in a whole nother direction. That's what I mean. There's the cultural threads that are infused in this production, not just that it's a musical set in China, you know, not just that there are Asians on stage, not just that there is, you know, Asian or Chinese names and based on Chinese stories by a Chinese author. It's more like the whole thing is infused with opera, you know, and visual art. And I think another director would have moved into more musical theater realm, you know.
Right.
But
That's
I
correct.
think it was an opportunity here in Portland to present Chinese brush painting, to present Chinese opera, which is not normally done, you know, and we need these kind of cultural thread experiences. I'm going to move to the next slide. And so here again, here's the fight. And so what happened, I recorded this during tech rehearsal. So I'm going to play, hopefully it'll play the whole thing.
Who you are, and I have something you want. This is the page from the Book of Fortune, which you were never able to read. Well, I know the secret. Don't move, or I'll rip it up. This page can only be read when you write. And it's all yours.
Okay, I probably should quit doing that. So the reason I'm sharing this is just so you can see from rehearsal to, you know, performance. And I also wanted to ask Minh about just his training in Chinese opera, because it is pretty brutal, you know. And you, like Willow, had to contend, your family had to contend with the Cultural Revolution, which really, you know, shut down a lot of arts during that time. So would you talk about sort of your migration to Vietnam?
Sure.
Your training?
Yes, so I was born in the 60s, which is actually at the foot end of the Cultural Revolutions, where all of the master from Chinese opera, now that they can't really perform the work of Confucius, because I mean, in a way, 75 to 85% of all of the repertoire from Chinese opera are based on works by Confucius. And of course, the Cultural Revolutions, they burn all of Confucius' work, and they don't allow any theater company, a Chinese opera company, to perform that. So then obviously, and of course they prosecute all the artists as well. So most of the master from the Chinese opera end up escape to South Vietnam. And so when I was born, and so of course they were looking for some pupils, and I was growing up with my father reading all the Confucius work. And that was a blessing, because then he's taking me to see the opera performance, and just to see those bedtime story comes to life is magic, you know, and the colors, the music, the percussions, and that's why that destined that that I asked my parents for me to be trained in Chinese opera in that sense. The training, yes, definitely is brutal. I was signed on at age 5 because they only select all of the students who come in, they have to be selected at young age, because by the time you don't actually get on stage until you're in your late 20s. So technically, I never officially performed in a formal Chinese opera format, because I was not old enough or didn't have enough experience to be on stage. You follow and you follow the master from everything, from the makeup to how you fix your own costumes. So the tradition is if the show is open at say 7 p.m. in the evening, you actually report it to the theater at 8 a.m. So the whole rituals of warming up and go walking through all of the complicated fight scenes. And then you have to do your own makeup. You literally mix your own powder for your face. And of course, Chinese operas involve a lot. I mean, the makeup is literally 50% of the look of itself. And then end up with layers and layers of costume. As you can actually see the, I think the most closest to the Chinese opera is the dragon's outfit. That's to have just layers and layers. I mean, the wig itself, usually when you see all of those beautiful performers with those wigs and to finish up with all the jewelry on their hair, that's at least 3 sets of wigs on their head to perform. And it's hard and the trainings, that's why the training is very brutal in a sense, like they prepare you to literally handling the most, I think like the most strenuous experience that you could have to endure during the 2 hours or 3 hours performance. So like the flexibility, so because being a Chinese opera performer training, you have to actually be able to sing, to act, acrobat, and dancing. So flexibility comes in mind as well. And actually, when they were saying, when I was hired at Reed College, they said, well, would you teach Chinese opera technique, how you were trained? I say, well, if I were doing exactly how I was learned, I would probably get fired. So
Yeah, because there's so many boundaries now, right, Min?
yes.
And the thing is, you can't have people slapping your hands. You can't have people, making you like 10, 12 hours a day of work. You just can't do that here.
Yeah, I mean, they were tying my ankle onto a 2x4, and then slowly now has another rope from the hip, pulling it closer to the 2x4. So to stretch out your flexibility, and then they just keep pulling for about another inch into the 2x4. And then the master would go off, have a coffee and chit chat and come back. Okay, how are we doing with the stretching?
I know you laugh about it, but it's pretty abusive, and it's suffering for your art. And you hear about ballet stories and how brutal that can be, but it seems to me in comparison, that at least here, I mean, you could probably just quit and but it seems like you really didn't have a lot of choices once you're in the school. So
yes, and because they prepare you, and of course, like only the best will survive. And also to prepare for your technique. They're looking at the 100% perfect score when you get on stage, so
it's a difficult art form. And that's something that I really wanted to bring into it, because I think the actors did a good job, but there's just so much more.
There's so much more,
right? If we had that. So again, it's like, okay, so Willow will teach a brush painting class, and now men can teach Chinese opera techniques, because I know in your, in your contemporary dance, you do infuse Chinese opera, and it's kind of all connected. It really is.
And I thought it was so sweet of experience to work with the actors. They all were so hungry for information and for all of this new vocabulary.
Know anything. I know.
Yes.
Because there's no exposure to it here, and they want more.
Yes.
And it's like, what are the Asian dance forms, right? Japanese is pretty clear cut. I think we have a very strong Japanese American community here, and there's, there are definitely masters. But I'm just thinking in terms of Chinese dance, there really isn't as much, so I think that's what that's starving from. And I was jealous a lot, Min, because they love you more than they love me.
No.
Yeah, okay, we'll do the acting thing, but
It's just, I think once we decided, like you decided, that it's gonna have that look of the Chinese opera in it. And so of course, then it's not just about a musical anymore. We're talking about entire play that involved with all of the gesture. So then the vocabulary now has translated to every single line from the actors. And so they always pull me aside, oh, this is my line. How would I do it in Chinese opera? And,
I don't like hearing that story. We'll talk later. But it was kind of that experience where I think that they were hungry for that because they wanted to go further than most
Mhm.
actors would, I think. Sometimes actors will go, well, yeah, but that's, we don't want to go in that direction because that's even harder. But for some reason in this play, I think that it just called for it because the story is very simple. It's a folk tale. It's really a folk story about a young girl's heroic quest. And so I think that these actors are so good and they are so experienced that they were hungry for something new, so that I think that brought a lot of creativity to it. And I think that they appreciated it, not just for the movement, but also just the art of the scenic design and Willow's, magical peach tree and the fruitful mountain, images at the end. So yeah, I think that it worked very well. And I hope, I know that I wanted to say this, Oregon Children's Theater did video it, film it. And also when the sign interpreters, the American Sign Language interpreters were there. So they are planning to have some showings in for schools, but I'm trying to talk them into just general Asian Americans, to be able to see it, that especially in rural areas. And I talked to the playwright and he's open to it. So it's just a matter of, for me, again, not seeing those images when I lived in rural Oregon outside of Eugene in a small town and not having that exposure. And I think people forget here in Portland that there isn't, there aren't opportunities even in Portland to work with, Willow or Min, there aren't that many opportunities. And so this is something that I keep telling people, especially in every production I'm involved in. How do we make it accessible, not just for Portlanders, but people outside? So I don't know, just stay tuned for Northwest China Council, you guys who are watching this panel or this Zoom panel today, because I will tell them if there's an opportunity for people to see the video, for especially if you're outside of Portland, because it's just hard to get to the theater, and to drive into Portland. So I don't know. I was just going to ask Jim if there's any questions, or if there's anybody who are watching the chat right now, if they want to send in some chat questions, just to go ahead and send us any of your thoughts even.
Yeah, I will make a comment now because I did see the show, and of course, the projection art that is so amazing. Willow's paintings and seeing that projected on stage. I'm so glad we had a chance to talk about that today because I want to see more projection art outside of the theater. Like I'd like to project some of those images somehow to share part of the story. The other technology innovation when you go to the show is you get this little card that has the QR code for a program that you then view, such as more information about the wonderful actors that we all should share this link again so that people can read the program, after the show, maybe on their computer, not just on their cell phone. But anyway, so what I did, as everyone does, is you get the program on your cell phone and you have a minute to look at the creative team. And we have several today, but some other people involved in the lighting, costumes, set, sound, props, all of that is now, this is how we disseminate program information today. And so this card's a real treasure because you can rescan it when you get home and read more about the show, since you're not going to be taking a program in hand. But the thing we want to do with Northwest China Council is also provide further information in our newsletter. And I wanted to thank you for mentioning us in this article that appeared in Asian Reporter in March, where you talked about the inspiration from Lan Su, and you mentioned that again today. But anyway, I'm kind of rambling because I'm looking at things coming on. There's something in the chat. And
Oh, there's a question.
question-
I'm planning to attend with a 7-year-old. Do we need to read the book first? No, you absolutely do not. We had the playwright in Leslie. We had the playwright yesterday, Minh Tran, and he basically had to take a huge novel like that Willow's holding up. It's not huge, but it's pretty
yeah,
big.
I have it too.
But to make it into a 70-minute play. So he had to cut out a lot. And so he cut out a lot of scenes, a lot of characters, and it's very streamlined. And I had read the play first and then read the book. And it's very different. There's a lot of similarities, but it's very, very different. So yeah, I think your 7-year-old would totally enjoy it. So Leslie, please come 2 p.m. and use on Saturday and Sunday and use your discount. And I think it's just NWCC, right, Jim?
20, I believe the number is there.
NWCC 20, and then you
right.
get 20% off.
And then I would go ahead and get the book for your summer reading after the show. It did win the Newbery Award, you know.
Or you can buy the book, you know, at the theater, and Grace Lynn will be there on Saturday, and you can sign it. And what a thrill that would be for your 7-year-old.
What an opportunity. Anyway, yeah.
Well, I just wanted to say that it was important also for me to have connections. A lot of times theaters don't connect with the community. And that's why I you know, urged OCT to have partnerships with Lansu, with Northwest China Council, and with the Chinatown Museum, because so often cultural works are done in Portland theater that have no connection to the actual people that are represented on stage. And so that was really important. And a big reason why Samson and I co-founded Theater Diaspora too. So that's that connection is so important. That's also a cultural thread. You know, if the community isn't watching on, you know, what's happening on stage, and, you know, there's nobody that's represented in the audience that's on stage, then I feel like that's a loss, you know, especially for young people, because they need to see that representation. I didn't have it, you know, when I was growing up in Oregon, and that is just something that's dear to my heart because it's so isolating. And that's something I talked to Grace Lynn about too, the author. She said that she grew up in upstate New York, and she and her sisters were the only Asians in their entire school, you know, and so she knows how isolating that is. And sometimes you just question your whole Asian identity. You know, you don't really understand it a lot of times, except for your family. So that's something that I felt was really important. There's another question. Is that from you, Willow? Oh, you want to ask it?
Oh, that came in on the chat line rather than the Q&A line, right?
So how did, I didn't come up with the idea, Willow. It was Oregon Children's Theater. They had previously done a Minh Tran play in 2016, and they know that he wrote this, and they like to do shows that actually have books too, you know, and they are big proponents of reading and literacy. And so during the Journal of Ben Uchida, right before the pandemic, you know, it was just starting to happen, they asked me if I would direct this. And I said, of course, it's Chinese, you know, I'm Chinese, you know, I would like to do something of my culture. And yeah, so that's how that happened. But then of course the pandemic happened and then shut down Ben Uchida mid-run. And then 3 years later, we did the show. So it's been on my mind for a long time, and it wasn't my idea. And I really thank Oregon Children's Theater for sticking with it, because it's a very expensive show. It's like, I wouldn't be surprised, you know, well, I shouldn't say how much, but it's the most expensive show I've ever worked on. There are so many professionals who are on the creative team, you know, and it's the Newmark Theater. It's like Portland's little opera house, you know. It's not a huge opera house, but it will seat like 800. So I think that's pretty big. And the school shows that they have are filled up. And I'm a little disappointed. I went yesterday and there were a lot of seats, and so I encourage people to go because it's not going to happen again. This kind of a production won't happen again. Not the kind of budget it is, not in the Newmark Theater. And it's the first all Asian local cast musical in Portland since I've lived here in 1989. And that makes me tear up a little. Why is it? Why couldn't it have been done? And we're at a time now where.
Well, I want to say great inspiration for something like this to happen again. And you mentioned that the Japanese community is well established here. And of course, Portland State University's producing kabuki right now in English with PSU students, and they're getting some attention over that. But I think the opportunity to present more Chinese-based or stories from the Chinese diaspora certainly should be inspired by seeing this show. And I hope these young kids that we saw on stage come back, with a show because they're so talented. It'd be great to see it again, or a show like this that can be inspired from this type of programming. I was going to ask Minh, though, if in his journey to America, when you left Vietnam, how did you feel about leaving Chinese opera behind? Did you think you'd ever do it again? Did you think you'd have to go on to Western forms of dance and drama? And how soon did you actually start performing Chinese oriented dance and theater after you came to the US?
Oh, actually, I gave up because the school is really strictly just for that focus. And so it was shut down when I was 10 years old. So I had 5 years of experience in it. And within those 5 years, just to remind you, the first 3 years, all I did was just how to walk as a performer. So I learned all the experience as much as I did, and it's still close to my heart. But no, I have to close it. That chapter, now that I'm too old, I mean, there's no way I could do it to that standard. And then so I picked up the Western dance when I came to America, in Vietnam. So it's actually now, it just only happened for the last 3 years. It's a resurgence of the Chinese opera technique. So now the theater, now they give the communist government in Vietnam now start to re-embracing all of this art that is actually was been forbidden because of political reason. But now they have lift that embargo in a way that, yeah, you can just use any sources you want. So that's why the reemergence of the opera is back, and theater goers now start falling in love with them again. So,
well, you made an amazing contribution because I think your students really understood the movement that they are responsible for their character, right? Each character was so nicely done, as far as the movement. And I appreciate your explanation of the kind of training that you went through and how you can inform others of the younger generation to take on this type of acting. It's a great show. We didn't talk much about the song list. Were there any of those particular songs that were more difficult to do the choreography for?
Actually, I love them all. They beautifully written, so it's so easy to work with songs that I'm all, I have a personal bias to say how melodic it is. And it's quite easy. And it's just like I say, it was almost like poetry in a sense. It involves so much action too. And so it was great under Dmae direction too. There was like one song I was prepared, and then we walked in that night. Dmae said, "This song is so beautiful by itself, and and that was Paper of Happiness part." And
it doesn't. Not all the songs needed movement. And
yes,
I think actually there were probably more that didn't need movement, but
yeah,
because especially the mother and the father are like the heart and soul of the show to me. They represent every parent who's ever tried to do well for their kids, but we're not appreciated. The girl runs away, And so they're searching for her, but all those, I think that they're very self-reflective songs, and they're more about their own personal emotions. And sometimes you just need to sing a song, you know, it's a
Right.
monologue, and you
Yes.
don't need anything else but just honesty and authenticity. And so our actors were so brilliant that they really didn't need a lot of that. They just needed a little bit to point them in the right direction.
Mhm.
You know, so
Yeah, and how ironic it is though, Dmae, like was I think there was more action that needed in the lines rather than the songs itself.
yeah, probably if you're going for the Chinese opera style, just even walking, you know, walking across the stage.
Yes.
Yeah, it was an interesting, you know, collaboration, because it really, everybody had to open up their minds about what theater could be. And I did, you know, I'm still thinking about it. You know, I'm still thinking about what could go in a different direction, or what could be better. But at some point you have to stop, you know.
Yeah.
The show's almost over.
Yeah. Actually, the one more comment. Yesterday, when Minh Tran was here with us in Portland, and he's the music and lyricist. So
Well, he wrote the
the
play.
music, yes,
He's the playwright, and he also wrote the music, and he's so talented, and he
Yes.
performed the music too, like, you know, because they're all singing to his tracks.
yes.
You know,
And he was saying that actually, because he's seen this is like the 5th production that he saw. Correct me if I'm wrong.
this is the 4th production of it.
Yes, and so he say, I think this is great that it works out well, was because I came in when he said this has so much of Chinese opera influence in it, which is so different than what he expected.
Actually,
then
I told him that's what I wanted to do, and he was kind
Yeah.
of thrown from. He went, "Really?" You know?
And he said it worked just because I came in with no expectation or even any of the Western philosophy to put in it at all.
Yeah.
It's just like, so you just had open mind and you just wanted that, and it worked really well for it. It could have gone to, like Dmae was saying, it could have gone different directions in other production. It was not like that at all.
Yeah, and it did go in different directions in other productions. It was more very Western, you know, Western interpretation. So we're almost at the close of this. Jim, do you have any final questions or thoughts? I just want to encourage people to go to octc.org and get their tickets, because there's only 2 shows remaining. And
we will be posting this on YouTube very soon and sharing that through our email and partner organization contacts, so that people can go see the show. It's a great show for Portland. It's very uplifting, and it's really wonderful that you all came together with the cultural threads that you've shared with us today and told us a little bit about it. Anyway, I want to just remind viewers of the YouTube program today that you can visit northwestchina.org for updates on future programs, our newsletter availability on PDF, and also other information as it relates to creative professional series. Oh, go ahead.
And I just want to do a final shout out for Oregon Humanities for supporting this this talk today too.
Well, thank you so much, Oregon Humanities. We do follow your website as well, and all the activities that are taking place in our community. So it's really wonderful to have you all here today. And please get in touch. I see some thank yous coming in the chat line. And thank you all for attending. And we look forward to seeing you on stage again before the last show, and perhaps at Grace Lynn's book talk, which I think there'll be 1 or 2 of these maybe happening outside of the theater, right?
Green Bean Books is collaborating, and they'll be selling books there.
So anyway, it's really wonderful for you to take time today to share your stories with Northwest China Council, and we look forward to seeing you again this summer. Thank you all for attending.
Thank you.